can. You can. Go ahead. It's all you. Welcome back to Block Notes, our follow-up after show from our very brain-busting conversation on chain. What it was? I don't remember the name. That's how brain-breaking it was. Chain-to-chain conversations. Should blockchains share their secrets?
Yeah. I really thought that I was not going to be able to follow anything you were saying. I thought it was very ambitious, ambitious topic, but I surprised myself, and I feel that I followed fairly well.
Great. So thanks for tuning into the Block Notes. We'll catch you next week.
Yeah, right.
Peace. Do you have any follow-ups to that or feelings about it?
Oh, geez. I mean, really, you touched on a couple of things that I thought was interesting, like the distributed ledgers, there being more. The restaking, I wasn't really sure what that is. I think you touched on liquid staking. You talked about dApps, which I think would be interesting to chat about. Layer 2 ETHs, I thought that was, I didn't know exactly. You said they don't exist, is that correct?
Yeah, let's delve into that part real quick. 'Cause everything else we can sort of make its own show, I think.
Okay.
The layer 2 thing, we did a conversation on layer 2s, right? We did a conversation on the trilemma before. So check those episodes out to get more in detail in them. But part of the trilemma is the scaling, right? How do you scale up these decentralized secure networks? And layer 2s is one of the plausible solutions, right? You build the internet, right? This is the common example, the internet runs off of this protocol called TCP/IP, right?
Okay.
Right. You don't got to know any of that stuff. Just know that is the basic communication portal of that.
Okay.
The part that we interact with the most, though, is the web. We don't really interact directly with the internet too much, an average user. They internet with the World Wide Web, which is built on top of the internet. Right? It utilizes the communication portal that the internet is. The internet, just for very basic simples, right? If you say, what is the internet? The best everyday language definition is the internet is two or more computers talking to each other. That's it. If you have at least two or more computers that can communicate with each other, you have an internet, period, right? But now let's say I want you to show this document over the internet. It's a communication port. That's all the internet is. It's them talking to each other. So I can tell my computer to communicate this document to you.
Okay.
Right? But it's basically going to send it to your computer, and then you got to use some other application in your computer to view the document.
Right.
Or we could build out something the web, right? So I'll have World Wide Web. I have this HTTP or now HTTPS. This is a whole different protocol built on top of the TCP/IP thing, right?
Okay.
There's these layers, and at the near the very top is HTTP www. Right? And that allows me to not just share that information with you, but display it how I want you to see it.
Okay.
And now you can look at it, right? And then we've built layers on top of that, like JavaScript and stuff, that not only allows you to see it, but it allows you to interact with it. And this is what, like, when you click something and something moves on your screen, or you log in and it remembers you logged in because it uses cookies and all these things. These are all different things built on top. So right now in blockchain, right now you have this layer 1, let's say Ethereum layer 1.
Okay.
And it does what it does. There's a lot of stuff, but transactions are expensive. Or you have Bitcoin and it's layer 1, but all it does is trade Bitcoin. I can send Bitcoin or I can receive Bitcoin. I can't really do too much else, right?
Right.
So I want to do more, but I don't want to touch the layer 1. I don't want to make that any more complicated. It's already hard. It's already whatever. I don't want to do more there.
Okay.
I could utilize what's called a layer 2, which means I take the security model of layer 1 and I let layer 1 store the data, the information. But when I do all the transactional pieces, I want to do that off chain. So I build this layer 2, layer on top of it, just like the World Wide Web is built on top of the internet. I build this layer 2 to do these different kind of transactions. So Lightning for Bitcoin's case, right?
Okay.
It'd be like a layer 2. I really call it a layer 1.5. It's not a pure layer 2 in my opinion, but we won't get into that stuff. You have Lightning. So Bitcoin is for storing value, right? And you can do for large scale purchases. It's fine because you need to know you need that assurity of finality. If I'm going to do $1 million purchase, you're going to, or you want to make sure I sent you the $1 million.
Yeah.
You have it, not like it's on its way, not that a bank said they have it. You want to be assured you got it. So you're going to do that on Bitcoin. But if I'm going to buy a T-shirt from you, that I can do on Lightning. Yeah. And the fees are cheaper, it's faster, it's way more, but you don't have the same assurances you have with Bitcoin proper that you have with Lightning, right? You have a lot of assurances. I'm not saying it's scammy, but it's not as assured as Bitcoin. But you can always exit the Lightning channel and go to Bitcoin if you ever wanted to be sure, right? And the same thing like on Ethereum. I want to do all these things, but I don't want to pay all these huge fees. And so I do the transacting on a layer 2, but that layer 2 directly utilizes Ethereum, the main Ethereum network, for the security and for the data availability, making sure everything is what it is.
Okay.
Right now, we don't really have that. Like Lightning, like I said, that I consider that more of a 1.5. It's not the same as like a layer 2. I won't get into technical details, but if you want to know, hit us up, ask us.
Yeah.
We can dive into it. And with Ethereum, right now, the layer 2s, the problem with the layer 2s is they don't know how to directly communicate with layer 1 in this sort of fashion. That's why you sort of have to bridge tokens over to them. So they either have, you have Polygon, which is really just like a side chain.
Okay.
It's not a layer 2 at all, even though they just introduced what's considered more of a layer 2. I just don't think it's highly used yet. But you'll hear a lot of talk these days around this block height of ZK, some kind of ZK, right? ZK proofs, zero knowledge. It's just this way to allow your layer 2 to communicate to the layer 1 without giving up a bunch of information, and that will increase your privacy on chain. That'll increase, allow true layer 2s to happen without having these multi-sig. The problem with a lot of layer 2s now is there's a small coalition of people who, even if it is a true layer 2 built on top of Ethereum, which they have, they're controlled by a small amount of people. They have keys to it. So whatever you're doing, it's not censorship resistant. They can come in and interfere with it. A true layer 2 would still be censorship resistant. It would still be permissionless. It just wouldn't, it would depend, it would have more of this conjunction with the layer 1 Ethereum in this case. And you could operate on that layer 2 with almost the same censorship resistance, permissionless, trustless assumptions as if you were dealing on Ethereum directly.
Okay, but some people are calling some of those, what you're saying are side chains, they're calling them layer 2s?
Well, yeah, a lot of people would call Polygon a layer 2 because they don't know, but it's really a side chain, even though they just launched. They were like, we could fuck around for a couple years and never really produce anything, but people want to use it now. This is why Polygon during the 2020 bull run, right? For as far as Ethereum, Polygon was the most used chain that wasn't Ethereum, that still utilized Ethereum, because they didn't wait. You had Arbitron, you had Optimism, you had a few layer 2s that were more properly labeled as layer 2s, but you couldn't use them because it didn't work yet. And they still really don't work. Even though people are using them, there's a lot of trust into that because the keys are controlled. I mean, it's the same amount of trust you're putting in Polygon, and the keys are controlled over there too. But, it's not the layer 2 people envision. It's like sometimes you say something and it's not what you think it is. That's it. Like layer 2s that people think they're getting when they talk about layer 2s, they don't exist yet. At least not on Ethereum. I don't know if they exist on any. A lot of platforms don't even have layer 2s because they think they can solve the scalability on chain, so they don't need a layer 2. Like Solana won't have a layer 2. They're like, we can do it on chain. And sure you can. Nobody uses your chain. So that's sort of that thing. And another point of why, if you're dealing with side chains, though, maybe layer 2s don't work. We haven't really used a pure layer 2.
Right.
They might not work. Most things we've tried don't work, right? I know there's a lot of hype around it, but it might not work. Maybe side chains are the way. But this is where we get back to should chains talk to each other.
Yeah.
Because a side chain is really just a blockchain that syncs to a bigger, more decentralized chain versus trying to be its own chain in and of itself. Mm-hmm. Ethereum, I'm going to use this direction. Ethereans will hate that I'm always going this direction. But Ethereum could end up being a Bitcoin sidechain.
Oh boy.
Especially now that it's proof of stake.
Yeah.
Because there are still, there was a problem on Ethereum maybe a few thousand blocks ago. If we're going by block height, you just check out the main episode's block height. Ethereum happens in epochs, right? Some people say epochs, but epochs. That's what I'm going to call them. So it's like, a block happens every 15 seconds or so, but it takes, I think, 10 blocks is an epoch.
Okay.
Or an epoch on Ethereum.
Yeah.
And so every 10 blocks, these validators check and be like, all right, this is set. This is now, just like with Bitcoin, you'll say like every 6 blocks, 6 confirmations. That's that for Ethereum. It's like, all right, now this is set in stone, right? But Ethereum had a couple where whatever node operator was supposed to validate that epoch, it didn't happen.
Right.
And so now you had a double set of epoch. You had to go 2 epochs before you had that final confirmation. For your average user, it didn't mean jack.
Right.
But if you're doing some large scale transaction where millions of dollars of value or whatever
being held,
or we'll say we'll get off the dollar standard. If millions of ETH worth of value is at stake, you want that finality.
Yeah, I would say so.
And if you're skipping epochs,
it's gonna be a problem.
It's a problem.
Yeah.
And so some chains, we brought up like Cosmos. So a proposal there's a couple proposals on Cosmos because they realize this problem. They sort of operate the same way. And they're even a step down, I'll call it a step down from proof of stake. They're delegated proof of stake, right? And so they're like, well, how do we deal with this? Well, maybe every so many epochs will sync to the Bitcoin blockchain. We will do so for them it would be every couple, maybe 1,000 blocks, right? But for Bitcoin, it would be every block because it's every 10 minutes. But they can do thousands of blocks in the time it takes Bitcoin to do one. So after every so many blocks, we'll take the state of our blockchain and place it on the Bitcoin blockchain. That'd be a fairly cheap transaction. And now, if you ever want to go back for finality, right? You're doing something on Cosmos, and you're like, well, how do I know this is true? Well, you just have to go look at the last Bitcoin blockchain because people aren't questioning the validity of the Bitcoin blockchain.
Right.
So it's like, well, I know you controlled this long ago because it's on the Bitcoin blockchain and you can't fake that.
Right.
So I know at least from this point, you were honest.
Yeah.
I have to be willing to trust you for up to about 10 minutes, but that's still better. So I get quick finality. I get quick transaction speeds because Cosmos is so much faster. But it doesn't have the same finality assurances as Bitcoin does. Now you get the best of both worlds, right? And that could be a way you maybe do you're working in side chains now. So Cosmos, depends on how you want to look at it, Cosmos is sort of a Bitcoin side chain because you can do stuff you can't do on Bitcoin over here on Cosmos now while still grabbing some of that assurity of Bitcoin. It's not layer 2 because it's its own chain, but maybe that's the answer. There's a lot of possible things you could do.
Very interesting.
And that was a better answer than you thought you were going to get.
Yeah.
Bah!
Certainly was. I can say that much.
So you got anything else, or are we...
No, that's good for me. I don't know.
All right. Well, check us out next Sunday at theblocument.com for a whole new episode of Find Out When You Tune In, or go check out theblocument.com to figure out what our next week episode is. I don't know right this second.
I was like, no, we don't know.
All right. So until then, peace.
Okay.